Hello and welcome everyone to our Dataquest 40 years celebrations. As you know, Dataquest has completed 40 years and we are looking both at the past and the future. So we'll be speaking to leaders in the field to get a perspective both ways. So in this edition, we have with us Shailendra Katyal, Managing Director of Lenovo India. And we will be discussing why this will be India's century in tech. Welcome, Shailendra.
Hey, thanks, Sunil. Thanks for having me on this platform.
Yeah. So I'll just get straight to it. Growing up in the 80s, I couldn't even imagine the amount of tech changes that have taken place in the last 10 years. In the 2010s, I would say, right, things have really taken off. Startups have taken off. And even the government of India is moving ahead with public digital goods. COVID, there was a great tech acceleration in India. So I'd just like to ask, do you think India can challenge the West finally and emerge as one of the global leaders in the coming decades in the field of technology?
Yeah. No, it's a fantastic point that you bring in on how we grew up with or without technology. I remember getting the first email account.
Yeah,
Hotmail used to be the first one that we
right,
got. And
right,
that was only around 99, 2000, right? So
right,
it's in a very short span of time, the way digital has taken over our lives is quite amazing. To the question that you asked about India taking on the West, I think increasingly what we see and hear is it's not us versus them. It's about more about can we solve problems
right,
at a global scale, and that is where I do see that there's a lot more appetite coming in. Earlier it was only India solving for India, but
right.
can India also solve for the world? I think that mindset and that confidence is coming through over the last 5, 6 years, I would say.
Yeah,
We've shown that we are able to leapfrog a lot of technologies, right? And we saw that many people never had a landline, but suddenly we became the second largest smartphone market in the world
right,
in a very, very short span of time.
right,
And the fact that people had never used that device but became very comfortable with the internet without knowing the language
yeah,
and all of that. So we've shown that innovation can really drive innovation, affordability, access. These are two, three things that if you do well in the country, then you can enable the country to do a lot more on the technology front.
yeah,
We have done that in ITAS also successfully, right? On these things solving for scale. Maybe we have not done it in some sectors, but India forever has been the office of the world, right?
right, right,
With all the offshoring drives and the fact that very, very good qualified people, the engineering talent and here has been always good. And language has not been a barrier, at least
right,
to solve for the ITES problem. So
right,
we've done it in the past. I spoke about technology adoption in smartphones. I spoke about the ITES ecosystem, which has been a big driver of our economy for
yeah,
several decades now.
yeah,
Now going forward, this India from office of the world, can it also become factory of the world? That's the new topic with Make in India, right? As people are looking
right,
for more diversified supply chain options. And I think the government has done a good thing in terms of promoting through PLI schemes the right incentives for many sectors, not just for electronics. But I think many corporates, including us, are quite encouraged
right,
with the push the government is making in the factory of the world kind of concept with
right,
Make in India for the world.
right,
Apart from that, you also spoke about startups, right, which is a true innovation in terms of very new disruptive ideas coming in.
right.
Given that India has some of the biggest problems to solve, right? Finally,
Yeah,
we became the most populous country in this
right, right.
month or so back.
Yeah,
So that increasingly people are looking at, right? If it
yeah,
can be solved for India, the
yeah,
replicability in a lot of other markets, especially
right.
the emerging economy, is very, very easy.
Yeah,
So that's coming through now. Our digital stack, India stack, is now being looked upon
right.
as one of the best in the world in terms of security, deployment, ease of use.
Yeah,
We've seen Aadhaar come in, we've seen UPI come in, we are now seeing public platforms of e-commerce come in,
yeah,
and that is where I think a lot of innovation will also start happening a lot more in the country.
yeah,
Have we been able to create very breakthrough technology giants of India? Not yet.
yeah,
But when we look at ed tech as a problem or agri tech as a problem, fintech as a
yeah,
problem, we
yeah,
are seeing many, many models which can go global, especially in the emerging markets, where
yeah.
again the problem is similar, right? Fragmented
Yes.
market, ticket sizes. But we are showing that appetite to also do innovation at scale,
Yeah,
not just the office of the world and factory of the world,
yeah,
but beyond that, true innovation is also coming
yeah.
through.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you. I like that. I talked about challenging, but you're talking of us being a leader as an integral part of the world, as the office of the world. That sounds more positive.
Yeah.
So, and another thing you mentioned in your introduction was that we are the most populous country in the world. Again, in the 80s, we used to hear, like that is a disadvantage, but I don't think that is so, because now we have such a great human capital, and also we'll soon have the largest workforce in the world. So tech also plays a role here. How can tech be used to enhance this human capital to its maximum capacity?
So again, a fantastic question that we have young people who are eager to learn. Our learning population, the student body is the highest. And obviously, there's a desire, right? All of us
Right,
have grown up with the Indian good middle class mindset of striving
right,
hard to move up in life, right? I don't think
right,
that's fundamentally changing. In
right.
fact, people are becoming a little more courageous also to not just seek employment, but create employment for others, which is the startup motion.
Yeah,
Some of the problems, though, are there in terms of the learning ecosystem. And we saw that in
right,
COVID, right? A lot of
right.
students were struggling. That is where the digital divide came to the maximum fore.
Yeah,
So that is one problem to be solved for, that people have access to a phone, they don't have access to a PC or a tablet. Penetration
yeah,
is just 10-15%, right?
yeah,
Which is very low for a country like India, where people want to learn, they want to contribute positively to the workforce. But if they grow up without a positive device in their
right.
hand, so I think the new education policy is talking about some of these in terms of digitizing the classroom, and it has to start there, right? It can't be through a
Right,
consumer retail push.
right.
I think it has to become embedded. Digital learning has to become embedded in the education system
Right.
for penetration to go up. And that is where I do feel, while I started on a positive note, we may have some lag versus other countries.
Right.
Like in some countries in Asia, people are learning coding at the age of 5.
Oh, yeah.
They're learning robotics very early, right? Where we
Right.
are still on a system of learning by rote,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah,
So how do we quickly move on that direction? So the government has spoken about the right steps in
yeah.
terms of changing the grading system, changing the learning methodologies. But technology adoption is very, very poor still.
Right.
There's almost this thing about learning loss over COVID, right? That people
Yeah.
were
Correct.
either not with a device or a shared device,
Yeah.
and they could not go to school. We've lost human capital for 1.5, 2 years. So everyone's trying to get that back, but can us as an industry and technology, government, schools, everyone do a lot more to drive more learning
Yeah.
through digital technologies? I think that's still we've done well on the private sector part with that tech companies like Byju's, etc.
Yeah.
But the larger learning population is still kind of deprived. In fact, I was on a roundtable with our finance minister, Mrs. Nirmala Sitaraman.
Right.
Generally, we all of us were asking her, what are the top two problems that you think we need to
Okay.
solve for?
Right.
And we were all expecting some finance-related answer, fiscal
Okay.
deficit or exports
Yeah.
or currency management or something like that.
Yeah.
Interestingly, she spoke about two topics: affordable energy, that what India
Okay.
needs to, the energy requirement of India to keep
Right.
growing at 7, 8, 9%.
Yeah.
We are not fully ready for that, which is where there's a lot of push to go green and at least have
Yeah.
more renewable sources of energy.
Right.
And the second one she said was skilling, that we have a
Right.
young and ready workforce,
Yeah.
but what are we training them for, right? Because the training, if that may create a bigger problem of unemployment if they are not
Right.
skilled to participate in the workforce. So kind of
Right.
tying back to the thing that, okay, India will become a 10 trillion economy. A lot of that will be
Right. Right.
digital and technology forward, but who's
Yeah.
training them at
Yeah.
early age? So that I think is another important area to look at.
Yeah. So, so far you have talked a lot about like the good things we're doing, the things we're lacking. So maybe if you can expand on that. So first is like you talked of India Stack. That is, I mean, the largest open API in the world. So if you had to, showcase two things, like what are the leading tech innovations that have come out on India? What have we got right? If you had to crystallize, that is the first part. And second part is, where is Tech India still lacking? Like you talked of ed tech, and at the age of 5, people in other countries are doing. So maybe if you can speak on these two from your point, what are the leading tech innovations, and where are we lacking, and what can we remedy in that?
Yeah, so I think the good part is in a very short span of time, this foundation has got built, right?
Right.
But usage of that part, right?
Yeah.
Now, India talks about teacher to student shortage. The ratio is
Yeah.
very poor. Now,
Yeah.
digital can solve for that problem. That one
Right.
teacher, instead of teaching a class of 50, can
Yeah.
teach a class of 500 at one time.
Definitely. Yeah.
Similarly, this lack of healthcare access,
Yeah.
that a doctor is not able to visit. Now, telemedicine is an established practice. Can you do agri-tech in India? Productivity, given the fragmented land holding, it's still a
Yeah.
big problem.
Yeah.
So, how do you use now some of these technologies where acceptance is okay,
Right.
but do a little more innovation on this part to solve for some of these problems? Because right now
Right.
we've just got the foundation in.
Right.
Usage of the foundation to truly solve for some of the bigger problems. I think that's still to be seen. Digital divide I already spoke of that
Right.
we don't have enough devices in the hands of
Definitely.
students to work on.
So
But that will happen because
yeah.
every time you build a stack, you see people coming in and like because there was UPI, now there are so many fintech
Yeah.
innovations. So that
Definitely.
will help participation in the stock market, that will help participation in insurance, that will do more of financial inclusion.
Yeah.
Earlier it was difficult, and even
Yeah.
on government programs, you heard about money getting leaked, right? It
Right.
was
Right.
not reaching the intended pocket. Now, because it is through a digital mechanism, it's going straight to the intended user.
Yeah.
So I would still say a lot more positive, but yeah, from the foundation that has got built to real usage and multiplication of the benefit,
Yeah.
quite a to be done.
Yeah. Okay. And so, like, another thing is, like Asian companies like Lenovo, they have really succeeded and they are successful all across the globe. So, if you look at, say, companies like Lenovo, what have you done right? How did you achieve this, and what are the lessons for other companies?
Yeah, so broadly, if you see all emerging market giants, right, and we are one of those
Correct.
originated in
Yeah.
China. If you look at some Indian companies also which have gone global,
Right.
um, I think the first thing stems from this desire to win big, right?
Right.
Do we have enough of those? No. But if
Yeah.
you look at examples even from India,
Yeah.
like Lenovo went global with a very large acquisition, right? That was just
Right.
appetite.
Correct.
At that time, people said that and ThinkPad was much bigger as a brand and a
Definitely.
company
Yeah.
revenue when this bold ambition was kind of laid out.
Yeah.
So Indian companies have also done that. Look at the Tatas; they've gone global, acquired many large enterprises. There are many other groups which have done the same.
Yeah.
So this thing about desire and that confidence that we can compete at a global scale, I think that
Yeah.
that is one pattern that we see.
Yeah.
And the other is, I would say, there is a emerging market frugality
Yeah.
which comes in, right? So if you look at
Right.
cost structures across all smaller Asian companies which are trying to become big,
Yeah.
they don't traditionally have the heavy cost structures which get created,
Yeah.
and hence the nimbleness, the empowerment in decision making, not having a very padded bureaucratic kind of mechanism.
Right.
That is also what makes the Asian companies a little more agile and nimble
Right.
and
Right.
empowered to move faster
Right.
in the market.
Yeah.
Where we lack again is more core R&D, core investment,
Right.
uh, and taking maybe a fairly long-term view
Yeah.
uh, of paybacks.
Yeah.
And nothing wrong with that because all Asian companies are trying to become big first, right? And that is where
Right.
you get the appetite to then become a core investor in fundamental development.
Right.
So I've spoken both of the positives, where there's agility, there's empowerment, there's frugality as a mindset, and there's
Yeah.
thinking big, wanting to grow big.
Yeah.
But at the same time, some of the longer term investments on R&D, but there is some catch up to be done.
Yeah. Okay. So actually, you have covered most of the points we wanted to know. And again, there are pluses, minuses, something will. So, what is your final verdict? We are already in 2023. So, can India make this our century? And by when do you think that'll happen? Because it includes everything. It includes the economy. It includes the citizens getting empowered, deep tech, everything. So, what do you think would be? I know it's tough to make a forecast, but what would be your final words on this?
Also, you're right. None of us are soothsayers where we are able to
Sure.
predict the future very
Yeah.
clearly. But if you look
Yeah.
at the pieces of the puzzle coming together, right,
Yeah.
where is most of the demographic dividend? The demographic dividend is in Asian economies,
Right.
more so in India. But even if you look at the emerging markets in a broader sense, that is where more of the demographic dividend is.
Yeah. Yeah.
As long as then the younger people are trained well and they
Right.
have the ecosystem to thrive,
Yeah.
that itself, the productivity of a 25-year-old will be better than people of my age, right? So that itself
Right.
will add to
Yeah.
Uh, the other is, I would say, just the base effect. If you're on a lower base,
Right.
when you grow, the percentage growth obviously
Will
will
be
be higher, right? So if you
right.
look at overall contribution to incremental GDP growth at a
Yeah.
world level, you will
Right.
see the Asian economies contributing a lot more, because
Right.
most of the mature markets, at least in terms of consumption,
Right.
are kind of flattening out. So
Yeah.
there is human capital, there is a lower base effect and
Right.
consumption effect which will come in.
Right.
Like even in smaller categories like penetration of packaged foods, for example.
Yeah.
India is very, very low compared to mature markets. It's already
Correct.
at 80, 90%. So just the fact that people will move with their lifestyle improvement to better products and better services, that itself will drive a lot of, I would say, incremental growth.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult, I would say, to, these are what are called secular forces. So there's a secular
Yeah.
force which is
Right.
going to help. More
Yeah.
consumption, more trained workforce, more
Mm,
productivity.
mm.
It will take a lot to mess this up, which can
Okay.
happen. There could be a
Right.
black swan event, there could be some
Yeah.
geopolitical
Yeah.
issue,
I know.
something else could happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
But by and large, I would say the stars are aligned to
Okay.
the Asian economies and specifically India
Yeah.
doing a lot better and overall contributing a lot more to global growth in
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, thank you so much. I mean, even I have a very positive outlook, and thank you so much for explaining the pros and cons so well during the interview. And I think the pros will triumph, and I think we will do well. So it's
Yeah,
quite great to hear that.
yeah, surely India's decade, that is what it's being called
Yeah.
out. For
Decade.
the next
Correct.
next decade, it's very, very positive and driven by technology.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunil. Really enjoyed the chatting.
Yeah. Yeah.